So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the continuation of our National Action Research Expo 2022 with our second topic entitled Action Research, Developing Effective Thinking and Practice. So before we start, we would like to shout out our participants from the different parts of the country. We have participants from Cagayan,
Sir Adrian, naka-mute ka.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the continuation of our National Action Research Expo 2022 with our second topic, Research, Developing Effective Thinking and Practice. So before we start, we would like to request everybody to put your microphone on mute status. And this time, allow me to greet some of our participants coming from different parts of the country. So as I can see in the chat box, we have participants coming from Cagayan State University, Piat Campus. Good afternoon. Good PM. From Sir Renato Baliado from University of Eastern Philippines, Lawang Campus, Northern Samar. Also a greeting of good afternoon from Sir Romeo Layones from Cabanines Sur. And also good afternoon, marahay na hapon attending from Sorsogon State University, Sorsogon City Campus. And we have also attendee from CPC Mlang Cotabato from Mindanao. So magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. So before we proceed, let me take this chance to invite everybody for our first CPD accredited event. So it is a seminar workshop on designing and developing instructional material that will take place on February 18 to 2022 via Zoom video conferencing. Slot for this event is limited and attendees will earn 12 CPD points. For those who are interested, you can click the link on the chat box or visit the official Facebook page of PICE 21 or Philippine Institute for the 21st Century Educators. So I think everything is set already. At this time, let me introduce to you our speaker this afternoon. So he finished his Bachelor of Science in Biology and Diploma in Teacher Education at Colegio de San Gabriel, Arcangel. He finished his Master's of Arts in Education, major in Biology from Bulacan State University, Malolos Campus. Currently, he is pursuing his Master in Education, major in Educational Leadership at Colegio de Dagupan, and his Master of Arts in Teaching Science at University of Caloocan City, Camarin Campus. For his work experience, he is the Editor-in-Chief of International Journal of Discoveries and Innovation in Applied Sciences from 2021 up to the present. He is the editorial board of European Journal on Agricultural and Rural Education from 2021 up to the present. He is the editorial board of International Review of Social Sciences Research from 2021 up to the present. He is the senior high school teacher, school research coordinator, school testing coordinator, school YesO coordinator of Graceville National High School from 2019 up to the present. He is a college professor one of Colegio de San Gabriel, Arcangel from 2015 to the present. He served as a senior high school teacher of Towerville National High School from 2017 to 2019. He served as senior high school teacher at Seed Academy Foundation Incorporated from 2015 to 2017. He also served as junior high school teacher at School of Our Lady of La Salette from 2014 to 2015. All right, so to mention a few number of his speakership, one, understanding the end-to-end process of science action research from scratch to paper presentation at the Philippine Association of Physics and Science Instructor of De La Salle University, last May 29, 2021. Number two, understanding the end-to-end process, qualitative and quantitative research, mixed method from sound of experiences at Colegio de San Gabriel, Arcangel, last March 28, 2021. And crafting action research innovation and plans for continuous improvement in teaching practices from proposal to implementation at San Martin National High School last March 17, 2021. Some of his papers presented: Cultivating Research Culture, Capacity Building Program towards Initiatives to Improve Teacher Self-Efficacy, Research Anxiety, and Research Attitude at the 5th Global Virtual Conference on Multidisciplinary Trend in Academic Research last March 19 to 21, 2021. COSIM, Comics Cum Sim, an innovative material in teaching biology at international training on improve the research capability of educators last February 28, 2021. Effectiveness of cooperative learning approach towards student academic achievement and attitudes in teaching biology at 3rd National Convention of Biology Teachers, Pampanga Chapter last June 22, 2019. His awards: 2021 Most Outstanding Teacher in Research, International Edo Conclave and Awards last April 30, 2021. Global Outstanding Teacher, Leadership in Education Academy and Development, LEAD, Philippines last April 10, 2021. Global Leader Award, International Journal of Advanced Multidisciplinary Studies Beyond Books publication last April 10, 2021. Global Educators Award in Research, International Journal of Advanced Multidisciplinary Studies Beyond Books publication last April 2021. Outstanding Teacher, World Education Leaders Summit and Award 2021, last March 7, 2021. Outstanding Teacher in Research, Department of Education, City of San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, last October 5, 2020. Best Action Research, Department of Education, Schools of Division of City of San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, last January 20, 2020. Student Choice Awardee in Towerville National High School, last October 9, 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Professor Resty C. Samosa.
Thank you po.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon po. Allow me to share my slide deck po.
May I request the assistance from our technical team?
Okay. The topic that I assigned to me is how we're going to make our reflections and practices by using an action research. For my experience as an educator and a thesis advisor, these are some of my reflections and practices when we do an action research in the graduate study and undergrad program. Okay, these are our learning episodes. The first one will be action research praxis, the key characteristics of action research, the role of reflection in action research. Number 4 is evidence-based practice to researcher of the self in action research, key principles that help us to judge our validity sa action research by linking values, practices, and theory. And one of my sample action research reflection and practices in the schools division of San Jose del Monte, I was ranked second place in this action research pertaining to practices of the teachers with regards to assessment. Okay, we all know that action research is trying out, and it's all about trying out reflections or idea in a practice as mean of improvement. And most of the time, meron tayong mga tinatawag na mga misconception with regards to action research. Action research is not usually things that teachers do when they think about their teaching. Remember, when you do a research or action research specifically, it's not usually done by done by teachers. It's a reflective approach of doing a research in your classroom or in your most of the time. In one of my innovation in teaching in the new normal is the merging of merge offline classroom model in teaching research and biology in my classroom, so that it's a paradigm shift with regards to teaching and learning process. Another one, action research, it is not just a problem-solving approach or a problem-solving design. Action research involves problem posing, not just problem solving. It means you're going to pose the problem and not just only solve the problem. It must be translational approach. Most of the time, in doing an action research, after you do an action research, it will be a translational research that can be used as an innovation to your school community or in your institution. Then most of the time, kapag ang pinag-usapan natin ay action research, kailangan tignan natin it's motivate by a quest to understand the word by changing it and learning how to improve the effects or the innovations of your teaching and learning process or your learning materials or your assessment practices to the changes that will you made in your curriculum or in your syllabus or in your teaching and learning process. It is not the scientific method applied to teaching. Remember, kapag ang pinag-usapan natin ay action research, it's scientifically speaking, it's just a method, a kind of methods or approaches. But most of the time, it's reflective approach ang ginagawa natin. Next, it is not research on the other people. Action research is a research by particular people on their own work to help them improve what they do, including how they work with and for others. If you're going to find out the roots of what action research, it is a qualitative in nature because you're going to focus on specific or an expert participants of your study. Remember, in the nature of qualitative research, most of your participants are expert participants who are engaged with the problem encountered. Most of the time, kapag ang pinag-usapan ng action research, your participants must be related with the problem encounter in your research na ginoconduct ninyo. Madalas kapag ang pinag-usapan ay action research, it must be collaboratively work po ito. Kung babalikan natin yung discussion kanina umaga, it's all about participatory research or participatory action research. It is also one of the branches of action research. It must be the school head, the stakeholder also engaged with the action research. Next, when you do an action research, these are the following characteristics. The first one will be practical. The teacher researchers study practical issues that will have immediate benefits for teachers, schools, and school district or your institutions. Remember, the practicality of the benefits or the practicality of the problem must be engaged in doing your research. Ibig sabihin, kapag gumagawa ka ng action research, you're going to make a practical issues that are totally emerging or phenomenon that are emerging to your classroom. Right now, one of the main problem in classroom is the limited materials or the limited modules that are created that are given by our Department of Education. In the Commission of Higher Education, we are going to contextualize our modules based on the learning modalities of our learners. For example, one of my advisee in psychology, they have a problem with regards to finding their participants nila, kaya kailangan namin i-contextualize based dun sa pangangailangan ng research nila. Kaya kailangan when you do a research, kailangan kino-contextualize nyo at nilo-localize nyo yung inyong perspective. Huwag nyo tignan siya like a thesis writing. It's different because practical research, practicality ang pinag-uusapan with regards to action research. We need an immediate action to a problem of your students or the problem in your institution or your university. Another one is self-reflective. I remember when we do an action research 2017, nakita ko one of the problem of the teachers is the assessment practices. So that nakita ko rin siya, ngayong emerging phenomenon ngayon sa online distance learning, isa sa naging problem in the Department of Education is the authenticity of the assessment practices of the teachers and also how we are going to assess our learners. Then the Department of Education nag-issue siya ng memorandum or memorandum na magkaroon ng academic health break because of some of the practices that given by the teachers and some of the issue with regards to yung mga nangyari sa ating COVID-19 pandemic. It is also self-reflective reflections to us to make an innovation or to make an action research about this emerging phenomenon. It's involved a self-reflective research by the teacher researcher who turn the lenses on his or her own classroom or school or practices. From that, we can identify how we are going to improve our practices as a teachers. Kasi when we do an action research, kasi one of the process or one of the procedure of action research is reflection. When we do an action research, you need to reflect. Objectively reflections siya dapat, hindi subjective reflections ang gagamitin nyo. Kaya kapag ang pinag-uusapan ay action research, kailangan ang lenses ninyo o ang inyong tingin is objective in nature. Kaya kapag ang pinag-uusapan natin ay classroom ngayon, sa new normal, titingnan natin how it is different with regards to traditional classroom. For example, right now we are conducting an action research together with my school principal with regards to their school leadership at school digital leadership, yung kanyang digital leadership and how the principals or some of the principals are competent with regards to technological leadership and how it will be reflected to the teachers. Remember, a good principals is also a good reflectors or a good self-reflective na managers in their institution. Kaya nga po, from that, makikita namin by using a self-reflection action research, pwede kami makapag-come out ng isang innovation. That will be talk natin bukas dun sa isang discussion ko is all about innovations. This is just only a continuous process of my talk from reflection, practices, and innovation. Another one is, kailangan tignan din natin with regards to the issue and concern or explore in ongoing way by teachers researcher. The process is spiral back for among the reflection, data collection, and action. Ibig sabihin, kapag tinignan nyo ang action research, it must be from the beginning, from the scratch, up to the last part of your research will be a continuous process. Hindi siya yung nakatulad sa ibang proseso ng research kasi may mga research after the implementation and publication yun na po yun. Kaya nga po, with regards to action research, it is one of the offshoot criteria when you do an innovation or yung tinatawag natin na innovation, curriculum innovation sa classroom or sa institution. That will be going to talk to you tomorrow, which is referring to curriculum innovation in action research by using an action research. Next, the role of reflection in doing a action research is to create model. You're going to create models from a body of a previous knowledge. Remember, when you do an action research, reflection is the most important tool in gathering your data from the observation and from your practices. From that previous knowledge, and also by the anchoring of your review of related literature, you can reframe a problem or issue, then intervention are carried out which lead to outcomes which are analyzed further. Reflection is a tool for promoting action, and it is intended to lead to an action which promote improved educational practices. For example, yung mamaya i-share ko sa inyo, the title of my action research is reframing the teachers' remote learning assessment practices. From that, nakapag-create ako ng isang innovations na magagamit ng mga teachers para yung mga estudyante namin in our school, hindi na sila masyado mabibigatan sa mga assessment or mga performance tasks because of this kind of assessment practices na in-introduce namin sa school. Remember, kapag ang pinag-usapan natin ay traditional form of research, the researcher do research on other people. However, in action research, you as a researcher do a research on themselves and inquire into their own lives. It means, kapag gumagawa tayo ng action research, kailangan ito ay na-explore mo yung experience mo as a classroom teacher, or you are a professor, or you are a curriculum writer, o ikaw ay isang educational leader, or ikaw ay supervisor. Kailangan when you do an action research, nagre-reflect ka with regards to your practices, with regards to your commitment in your position. Yun lagi ko sinasabi when we do an action research. It is not just only for promotion. It is your reflection of your practices as a based on your position or based on your academic rank. Because of this particular initiatives, you can share your legacy with your colleagues, not just only your positions as a curriculum writer or your school head, your head teacher, or your professor 1, professor 2, assistant professor, but the knowledge and the skills that you're going to share with your colleagues is the best way to become more efficient with regards to research culture, or tinatawag natin na research productivity. Kaya po doon sa isang ginawa kong action research, gumawa ko ng isang capacity building program in our schools division. From that, we can share some of the expertise of the action researcher based on their competencies sa different domain ng paggawa ng action research. For example, some of the speakers will be talk about statistical treatment, and other will talk about test of validity. From that sharing of the expertise, the teachers will improve their aptitude, will also omit anxiety, and will also increase the research productivity or action research productivity, and also improve the culture of research in your respective institution. This is referring to an action research. Kasi kailangan makapag-create ka ng isang improvement within your institution and within your stakeholder. It is just not only for your school, but also the totality of your stakeholder. Likewise, it is referring to a participatory action research. Pwede po yun ang gamitin natin. In referring to action research theory, changes does not come about as a result of simultaneous act, but through reflection on the understanding of specific problem within their social, political, and historical context. But we are just only focused on the social context of our teaching and learning process or in our institution. Kasi ang action research is not just only for educational purposes, or ginagamit din siya kapag ikaw ay nasa field ng social work, sa field ng nursing, sa other field of expertise, pwede naman po siya. Kasi nga po, ang pinag-uusapan kapag ang action research, you can understand specific problem in the society and how you're going to improve that by using different innovations, different reflection to improve practices. Next, when you're regarding to reflection, meron tayong tinatawag na critical reflection. It's a reflective analysis that not only explores how and why things happen, but identifies the assumption underpinning the analysis. It means, kapag ang pinag-usapan ay reflections, you need to become more critical with regards to principles na ang mga nakikita ninyong problem, the root of the problem must be identified ninyo. For example, in your class, right now in the distance learning, the root of the problem ngayon is assessment. Kasi ang teachers totally medyo nanibago with regards to how we are going to assess our learners. Paano gagawin? In traditional classroom, pen and paper ang ating assessment. Then, modular sila. Modules ang gagamitin. Kaya kailangan makapag-create tayo ng mga panibagong practices that improve the student academic performance. For example, by inputting integrative assessment, by combining the assessment tasks or the performance tasks of another subject areas or a situational analysis from a recent scenario or scenario ngayon, we can create a good intention of assessment na mas ma-appreciate nila kasi nakaka-connect sila with regards to the phenomenon or assessment na i-conduct natin. Ganun kapag ang pinag-uusapan ay paggawa ng assessment, kailangan na-engage ang bata with regards to the scenario at yung mga performance na gagawin nila. Ganyan, yun isa sa mga nakita kong reflections na nakita ko sa mga teachers during the conduct of my action research or during the na kailangan i-improve pa ma-improve using capacity building program kasi nagbago nga po ang ating assessment practices because in the distance learning. From that, there is therefore an interplay between the understanding and change in doing a reflection or in doing an action research. You're going to understand and then you're going to become motivated with a particular interest of changes in doing an action research. We need to change your practice. You need to identify or to become more motivated to change the practices based on the prevailing findings of the study na nakita ninyo para makapag-create kayo ng panibagong practices or share practices na may improve ang inyong institution. Likewise, yung kaninang discussion, yung may share doon na participatory action research, yung ginamit yung big book within by using the community ang gagawa ay mga magto-talk or mag-train doon sa community para gumawa ng big book. From that, yung stakeholder, nakikita nila yung ganong engagement so that the participants also part of the action research And also the writers will be part of the action research. From that, nakita ng mga institution that it's good because there is a participatory approaches within the conduct of research. Kasi nakikita yung engagement ng participants as also part din sila ng pagiging researcher. Ganun yung tinatawag natin na critical reflections. Kailangan we are totally added changes with regards to your practices that leads to a clear understanding of a particular situation or problem ninyo. Then reflections in action research is that a moment where the research participants examine and construct, then evaluate and reconstruct their concern. It means kapag ang tinitignan natin is reflection is in a qualitative tradition, kailangan tignan natin kung ang participants natin talaga is expert. Paano ko ba sasabihin na expert? Kailangan talaga totally engaged na experience nila yung problem with regards to your research or your action research. Kasi they can add informations or prevailing construct, then you're going to evaluate this construct and reconstruct their concern to make new practices or innovations. Ganun po ang reflections. Kailangan when you do an action research, the nature will be purposive. Purposive siya. Pero kasi may marami kasing approaches ang action research. Pwede kasi siyang experimental, yung inyong approaches. Pero kapag experimental, ganun din naman po. Purposive pa rin naman ang gagamitin mong sampling most of the time. Kaya nga po, they can add an action research approaches place more greater demands on those responsible action in the research to be involved for critical reflections, then process it. That is the common concern of action research. Next, these are the evidence-based practice to researcher of the self-in-action research. The first one, action research integrates research and action. Magkaiba sila sa paggawa ng ibang uri ng form ng research. Pero we can integrate research and action in one research study. For example, when we do an action research naman po, for example, in your classroom right now, if you're a science major, you can create a research about how you're going to improve student scientific argumentative writing skills. Kaya pag ikaw ay nagtuturo ka ng laboratory, kailangan ma-improve yung scientific argumentative writing skills ng mga bata para yung kanilang kakayanan na mag-interpret ng data, yung kakayanan nilang mag-explain ng data, from that, mas magagamit yon kapag aakit sila sa panibagong grade level. Paano mo gagawin yon? We can create an innovations from that. You can insert yung iba't ibang pedagogy or iba't ibang strategy from other specialization or course of specialization. For example, ako nung nagtuturo ko ngayon ng online distance learning and modular distance learning, how we're going to integrate scientific argumentative writing skills in laboratory experiences kahit nasa bahay sila. We can utilize online merge offline classroom na or home-based na mga laboratory equipment. Ano yung mga laboratory equipment? Yung mga naka-contextualize sa bahay nila. We can integrate yung mga materials na nandun sa kanila kasi bago ka muna magbigay ng instruction, we need to identify the resources of your students. From that, kung wala talagang resources, we can integrate technology. We can use different technology innovations na nasa phone lang nila. Meron naman tayong mga technologies na nasa phone, na offline, kahit walang internet, pwede yun. From that, naging malaking impact yon sa mga estudyante to improve their scientific writing skills. Kasi gumamit kami doon ng isang model or framework, yung claim, evidence, and reasoning framework sa pagsusulat ng scientific argumentative nila. From that, using technology, using different approaches sa pagtuturo ng scientific argumentative writing skills, na improve yung kanilang writing skills and kanilang laboratory skills kahit nasa distance learning lang sila. This is referring to action research that integrates research and action. This paper po ay na-publish po siya. The title of my research is Online Merge Offline Classroom Model in Teaching Uniform Accelerated Motion. They contextualize laboratory experiences of my students by adding embedded technology. It is online or it is offline. From that, it's research and action. Another one is action research is conducted by collaborative partnership. Collaborative partnership, it means the action research participate and collaborative, it is undertaking by individual with a common purpose. Kung ang pinag-uusapan ay participatory action research, pwede po ito. Pero kung ito ay classroom action research or district na action research, pwede naman po magkaroon ng collaboration or partnership with your other participants. For example, in my action research na kinunda ko with regards to assessment practices ng mga teachers, kailangan ko silang interviewin para makita ko kung ano yung kanilang prevailing phenomenon na na-experience nila ngayong new normal. Lumabas dun sa interviews ko, lumabas dun sa in-depth analysis ko ng yung mga seasoned teachers, medyo nahirapan sila kung paano mag-assess using yung mga Google Forms na naka-time. Kaya nagkunta kami ng training from that. Na kahit natutulog na yung mga teachers or kahit yung mga bata nagtatrabaho or nag-online seller sila, makapagsagot sila in their own time, then flexible yung time nila, kung kailan lang sila available pwede. Kasi ngayon, mas ini-encourage kasi yung flexible distance learning with regards to assessment. Kaya after the conduct of this particular action research, in the middle of my data gathering procedures, then dun sa reflections, nakita namin na kailangan mag-conduct ng capacity building program with regards to how we're going to assess your students flexibly. From that, nag-invite kami ng mga expert with regards to assessment kung paano ang mga seasoned teachers ay ma-integrate yung mga technologies sa kanilang pag-assess. This is referring to collaborative partnership within your stakeholder and also your participants and the researcher. Kasi it's referring to an action and research. Action research involved the development of knowledge and understanding of a unique kind. It means kapag ang pinag-usapan ay unique kind of understanding, this is referring to the expert phenomenon na na-experience ng iyong participants at na-experience mo bilang researcher. It's more on the development of a knowledge based on the understanding of the emerging problem encounter ng inyong participants. Kaya kailangan, when we do an action research, kailangan muna observable yung mga problem encounter, observable yung mga practices na nakikita nyo, to make a reflection from that, para makita nyo kung ano yung kailangan talaga na i-conduct na action research. Kasi may mga tendency rin when we do a capacity building program, parang paulit-ulit lang ibinibigay ng mga topic ng teachers. Kaya may mga sinasuggest kami sa capacity building program na binigay ko, yung mga emerging problem na na-encounter na yung new normal na kailangan bigyan ng pansin. For example, reading. One of the problem ngayon, again, is the reading. Paano ma-integrate yung reading ngayon sa new normal kahit walang face-to-face? One of my advice is to create a big book with a sound. Yung big book niya, naka-PowerPoint pero nandun yung sound, tag kinilik yun, may pinopronounce na sound. From that, the students can able to pronounce these words or group of words. From that, it's an innovative action research. This is a unique kind of a research na pwede natin gawin. For example, ngayon meron tayong mga tinatawag na mga distance learners natin, yung mga madalas marami naka-modular distance learning. Paano natin ma-improve yung kanilang academic performance kahit na naka-modular distance learning sila? Kasi kadalasan sa problem with regards to modular distance learning, yung mga bata hindi sila nagpa-participate with regards to pagkuha ng modules. Paano magagawa yon? Kailangan magkaroon ng innovative strategies. Gagamit tayo ng mga strategies na involve din yung parents. Kailangan din, alam din ng parents with regards to the understanding of the problem encounter of their child. Kailangan maunawaan din ng mga stakeholder yung nangyayari ngayon sa mga estudyante at sa mga teachers. This is also one of the research conducted is all about yung stakeholder. Mamaya may pakikita ko kung ano. Bukas mapapakita ko yung isang sample na ginawa naming innovation, research innovation sa atin bukas po. Sa research innovation to improve the modular distance learning in our institution. This is also referring to a unique kind of understanding of action research and also the product of action research after your findings of your study. Action research starts from a vision of social transformation and aspirations for greater social justice for all. It means action research can be based on the problem-solving approach. If the solution to a problem result is improvement of practices based on sa visions and transformation and aspiration of the researcher to improve the practices of their institutions and to provide justice from the emerging practices na kailangan ma-improve dun sa inyong institution. Action research involves high level of reflexivity. It means action research is iterative plan. Iterative plan are created ninyo and implemented and devised, then implemented, leading to itself an ongoing process of reflection and revisions. Ibig sabihin, meron tayong tinatawag sa qualitative research kasi characteristics to, it's reflexivity na tinatawag. Kailangan mataas yung reflexivity ng proseso ng action research. Kasi nga po, kung titignan natin yung root ng action research is a qualitative in nature approach to siya. Next, action research involves exploratory engagement with a wide range of existing knowledge. Kung titignan natin, exploratory engagement, this is one of the characteristics of qualitative research. In action research, finding emerge, an action develop and takes place. However, they are not conclusive or absolute but ongoing process of knowledge. Action research is engendered for a learning for participants. It means the main concern of action research is your participants of your study or your expert participants. Next, action research locate the inquiry in an understanding of a broader historical, political, and ideological context. An action research is situation and context-based approach. Pag sinabing context-based approach, kung ano yung konteksto ng problem within your classroom or within your school, doon po natin titignan. Kaya nga po, magandang gamitin ng action research to improve practices and to improve the institutions or policy and program of your institution. Kaya nga po, madalas ginagamit yan, input for proposed intervention program, input for instructional learning program. Ganun tinitignan ang action research. Okay. Another one, the key principle that help us to judge the validity of your action research by linking the values and practice and theory. Tatouch ko lang ng kaunting yung theory kasi it will be discussed tomorrow. But these are some of the key suggestions when we do an action research and how you're going to link to values, practice, and theory. Reflecting on issue and processes help us become aware of your own ideas and biases. The principle of reflective critique, the principle of reflective critique is ensure that we reflect on issue and processes and make explicit interpretation, biases, and assumption and concern that form our judgment. Reflective critiquing or critics often our ideas, feelings, thoughts, or processes, and conclusions to publicly review and to make a self-reflections again. By self-reflection and questioning and a new argument can be formed along with the possibility of a new actions or innovations. Kaya nga po, madalas kapag ang action research ang pinag-uusapan, kaakibat niya si innovations or curriculum innovations. Kung ito ay particular sa education, it's referring to curriculum innovations. Next one, it is a discussion of different reflective interpretation of practice in order to understand the relationship between all parts of our environment to see how everything fits together. This is dialectical critiquing. The key elements to focus on attention are those that are unstable or in madalas it's opposition to one another. You're going to focus on creating changes to your institutional practices. Kaya nga po, tignan natin ang action research as improvement of your practices by using your self-reflections. Another one is collaborative research. Kung ito ang pag-uusapan natin ay participatory action research, pwede. Pero pwede rin naman makiteam ka doon sa principal mo, sa iyong master teacher. Mas maganda yon. Mas magiging engaging ang yung research kasi kasama mo yung instructional leader with regards to creating a curriculum innovations by using action research to improve also your practices in your institution. Co-researcher works together to validate views. Everyone's views is taken into consideration in order to understand situation better. This makes possible to get insights from the contradiction between the viewpoints of your co-researcher or within your institutions. Noong una rin na nag-conduct ako ng action research ngayon 2021, 2022 with regards to assessment practices. Marami nagtanong if with regards to to improve their assessment practices. The main intention of my doing this action research is to create a new paradigm based on the learning modalities of my students and to improve also their ability sa digital assessment or yung tinatawag na embedded assessment using technology. This is referring to research in action. The changes process can cause fear among the researcher. Sometimes it is not easy to hear open discussion of one interpretation, ideas, and judgment. Kaya nga po, isa rin to sa mga kailangan gawin ng isang researcher, yung risk na dapat ibigay ng isang researcher. Kasi nga po, the action researcher must be prepared to take the risk by opening their ideas and reflection to criticism and risk the failure in order to learn. Yan, experience ko yan nung pinapa-approve ko na to sa school principal ko. Sabi niya, what will be your seriousness of the problem? Based dun sa emerging phenomenon na nakita ko and evidences sa classroom, nakakalungkot isipin dun sa modular distance learning, sa isang classroom, 45 ang students, ang nakakapagpasa ng 10 na fully complete modules na sagot, then the rest are not. Then yung sa 10 pa, kulang-kulang pa yun, 7 pa yung may kulang na totally nasagot. Yung iba hindi pa talaga totally na nasagutan. From that, sa reason kung bakit kinagda ko rin yun, yung mga estudyante is nahihirapan talaga sila sa bulk of assessment na ibinibigay ni teacher. Kaya sabi ko, we need to conduct an action research with regards to assessment practices of the teachers to improve also the mental health, to improve also the academic performance of our students. Kasi lumalabas, ang taas na binigay na grades, pero with regards to competencies, gain from the most essential learning competency, hindi na-meet ng estudyante. These are the sum of the seriousness of the problem in my action research. How we're going to improve the practices of the teachers with regard to assessment and teacher learning, and also to improve yung tinatawag natin na authenticity of their answer of my students. From that, we can create an innovative research or innovations from that. Kaya kailangan mag-take risk talaga ang isang researcher with regards to your problem encounter at kung paano niya siya masusolusyonan. Report should contain many plural voices reflecting diverse opinion, comments, and critiquing which lead to different interpretation of the evidence or data and recommendation for different possible action. These are referring to plural structure. It means using triangulation, yun nga. Ito isa sa pinaka-ginamit ko talaga with using triangulations. In both data collection and account of the research itself ensure a plural structure. By using triangulation, we can sustain the result of your research will be generalized talaga siya. Makapag-generalize kasi gumamit ka na ng triangulations. Such report encourage ongoing discussion among your co-researcher or your stakeholder or your principal that into your final conclusion of your findings. Number 6, the theory and practice are not in opposition in action research. They are interdependent and complementary parts of action research changes processes because they happen together and are both necessarily for in order to justify the actions or the action of the researcher or the action of the teacher in your problem or the emerging problem. Then the application of the theory is then further analyzed in continuous action research cycle and alternates between the theory and practice for process of improvement. It means mahalaga talaga na tignan natin yung theory and practices behind of your action research. We need to integrate theory and practices in your action research. Next. These are the principle of reflective practices in action research. Pasensya, nagkamali ako sa spelling ng research. Number 1, it needs to be understood and as a set of meaning, statement, story, etc. which produce particular version of events. It means when we do our reflective practices in doing an action research, we need to identify sets of meaning, sets of statement, and story. Kaya mas magandang gumamit ka dito ng in-depth interview o tinatawag natin na pwede naman observation. Pero ngayon kasi, ang hirap mag-create ng observations dahil naka-online distance learning tayo. We go to in-depth interviews. And discussion also, focus group discussion is also to produce a particular version of event or a particular phenomenon, or na-identify mo na yung mga problem encounter within your classroom or within your institution. Number 1, it's fuel and energized by experience. Isa sa magandang process, malaking edge mo talaga when you do an action research is your experience. Yung talagang nakita mo talaga, it's evidence talaga, yung experience mo na yun, na yun yung problem talaga. For example ako, I encountered the problem with regards to teaching chemical balance, chemical balancing. Sabi ko, paano ko ituturo ang chemical balancing? Sabi ko, kailangan ko magkapag-create ng innovations. From that, gumamit ako ng tinatawag natin na embedded discussions. Gumamit ako ng TED Talks. From that, naka-modular sila, pwede naman silang manood sa Facebook na recorded na boses or recorded na videos. From that, matututo pa rin naman ang mga estudyante natin or meron silang mga alternative way kaysa yung magpapanood tayo ng videos na hindi ikaw ang nagto-talk. Kasi ang mga estudyante natin, mas tinitignan nila kung sino yung nandoon sa video. Mas na-appreciate nila yon. It means returning to relook at our taken for granted values and professional understanding and practices. Kapag ang pinag-usapan ay ito, it is reflective turning of your practices. We need to consider the parts that play ourselves and other in this occurrence so that we can make a different understanding of your participants or others. Kaya kailangan talagang reflective approach or reflective turning talaga ang igagawin natin when we do an action research. Akala nila kapag nag-create ka ng action research, more on experimental, yun na yun. Pwede naman po yung more on experimental, but after the experimental approach of your action research, what will be the next? After the findings, what will be the next? We can do that in curriculum innovations para magamit ng institution ninyo. Kamukha niyan sa DepEd kasi, after your action research presented in the schools division, we can do that as curriculum innovation, yung tinatawag natin na innovations. Iba pa yon sa action research. It's the next steps mo para sa pagko-conduct ng research. Research naman din ang innovations. It is about learning to explain and justify the way we go about the things. Kapag ang pinag-usapan ay reflective practices in doing an action research, kailangan you learn from the experiences and you need to justify about these experiences based on the emerging phenomenon na na-identify mo sa data gathering procedures ninyo. Kung ito yung survey, kailangan ma-justify mo siya by inputting in the interview, or pwede naman na gumamit ka dito ng kung ito ay naka-survey instrument ka or naka-Likert scale ka, kailangan mag-input ka doon ng kahit man ng mga interviews para mas strengthen yung findings of the study ninyo. Madalas kasi na-experience ko, tag-umupo ko ng panel sa mga action research, experimental siya talaga, totally pure experimental. It's okay naman. But we need to integrate also interviews para ma-strengthen yung explanation or ma-justify yung findings ninyo. Ang madalas tinatawag to is mixed method. We can do a new reflective practices in doing an action research using mixed method. Mas maganda yun. It means considering what we do problematically by constantly inquiring, questioning what we do systematically so that we can learn continuously from it. Ito yung madalas na encounter natin. We can create a work plan in doing an action research. After ma-identify yung problem, we need to make a continuous approach of data gathering procedures and inquiring of questioning by utilizing work plan. Meron naman yon kung sa DepEd kami, work plan format naman. Sa higher education institution, meron din man tayong work plan yan na pwedeng gamitin. Next, it means putting what we know and learn to use and informing improvement by doing something positive and constructive through the knowledge we create, which is purposeful. Kapag ang tinitignan natin ay reflective practices ng action research, we need to create an improvement Your improvement must be informed your stakeholder or your school head or your dean, so that we can create a positive, constructive criticism para mas ma-improve pa yung practices ninyo. Kaya nga po, mas magandang involved sa action research yung inyong dean or inform yung dean. Siyempre, kailangan na magsulat ng letter din naman sa dean or your school head when you're proposing your action research. Kailangan kasama rin sila sa mag-assess ng ginawa mong innovations or ginawa mong action research. It means applying critical thinking to practice by asking probing or challenging questions, both of self and collective, so that transformation can take place. Isa sa mga reflective practices when you do an action research is critical thinking to a practice. Ibig sabihin, you're going to apply critical approach in data collection, literature reviews, and study, and by doing a continuous approaches pagdating sa pag-survey, pag-interview, then it will also do for a practices para ma-prove mo that your findings of the study create a transformation to the practices or the teaching and learning practices doon sa iyong research ninyo po. It is a way of decoding the symbolic landscape around us. For example, why an environment is equipped in the way that is the way it's in human creation occurs what appears significantly or worthy within the environment, and the way in which these things are respondents to. Ibig sabihin lang po nito, we need to create a symbolism. It is an important element for reflective discourse kasi we can create a symbolic landscape when you do an action research. Ano po sir yung sinasabi yung symbolic landscape doon sa inyong reflective practices? The symbolic landscape, these are referring to practices that you're going to examine. The practices that you're going to examine within your institution, or yung tinatawag natin na mga teaching and learning process, or yung tinatawag natin assessment practices, yung tinatawag natin na learning materials. These are symbolic landscape na kailangan nating i-examine. We need to decode this one para ma-improve natin and to create a responsive and reflective approaches from that. It's links between theoretical knowledge and practical application, enabling practitioner to create meaningful theories of action that are live and real. Okay. Ito isa sa mga kailangan talaga maintindihan when you do a reflective practices in action research. Yung theoretical knowledge mo can integrate in the application or practical application so that the practitioner or the researcher create a new theories or theoretical paradigm into a reality or into practices. Ganon siya tignan kapag reflective research ang approach niyo. Ibig sabihin, from the theory behind of your action research, your theoretical knowledge within your problem encounter, we can create a practical application that the practitioner will create a meaningful theories that can be generalized and can apply into a real life situation in your classroom. It is eclectic and comfortable with drawing on different way of knowing. Ibig sabihin, when you do an action research, kailangan comfortable ka with regards to knowing what is the problem encounter and how you're going to draw from different way of thinking. Okay, this is referring to sana yung matin ngayon, ma-screenshot nyo to para bukas ma-explain natin how it is important to conduct an action research from the practices or reflections into innovations. These are the issues and challenges on curriculum implementation encountered during the school year 2020 and 2021. For example, the issue with regards to learning access and learning delivery modality, what are the challenges encountered, will be the root of your action research, or the challenges with regards to practices, or reflection with regards to the challenges encountered. parents, assessment, teacher supports, and administration. Then what are the possible implementing guidelines to address the issue and concern using research in action? After reflecting the problem or the challenges, or after you conduct an action research to the following challenges, what will be the possible implementing guidelines to address the issue or concern using research in action? Then tomorrow I will going to share with you the may approve. Yung isa kasi, ito yung ginamit ko with regards to creating a research in action in our schools division. Right now, the paper are approved for the implementation. Then tomorrow, I will share to you research in action. But now, I will share to you my action research with regards to assessment practices po. Ito pong paper na to is the second placer po ko in my presentation in the schools division of San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. Last January 14 yata yun po. This is referring to reframing the remote learning assessment practices of teachers, input for school-based testing reform. I created a school-based testing reform. Medyo inayos namin yung mga testing practices ng mga teachers. Just only introduce to you some of the findings of the study at some of the rationale of the problem. The first one, this is a format of presentation po. A school around the world have closed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Student and teacher and parents and settling into a new reality for foreseeable future. From this, the Department of Education issued Department Order 12 Series of 2020. This is referring to BELCOP, yung Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. Then, however, without the grasp of the teachers and authentic learning experience, as in face-to-face teaching and learning process, the learners will have a difficulty in understanding the topic and will be demotivated to learning, ultimately leading to the submission of incomplete answer into their module or totally non-submission to the module, resulting to poor academic performance and risk of failure of the students. These are the prevailing observation that I encounter. In line with the Global Education Monitoring Report 2020, express the issue in educational aspect, one which is the assessment practices. Classroom assessment has been topic of interest for the researching the new normal of education, owing to lack of preparation and superimpose with the inherent problem of remote assessment. The main challenges identified in remote assessment were academic dishonesty and coverage of learning outcomes and commitment of the learners to submit assessment. This is according to late 2Cs 2020. Then in the way of observe that the teachers develop a new alternative and varied approaches to monitor learners learning from assessing to the remediating learning losses during the COVID-19 crisis, including both formative and summative methods. From that, the Department Order 31 Series of 2020 are implemented. This study evaluates the assessment practices of the teachers on the schools division of San Jose del Monte, Bulacan in my school with regards to remote learning assessment. Then from that, we can create a reform from school-based testing during the LAC and in-service training. Ito po i-implement na-implement na siya last month, then in-implement namin ngayon ulit po sa panibago dahil kababalik din ng mga estudyante. These are the research question. What is the demographic profile of the teacher respondents? Be described in terms of age, gender, area of specialization, year of teaching, highest educational attainment, and training attended with regards to assessment. And what is the level of teachers' competence and practices on remote learning assessment in terms of the following components? Competencies of remote learning assessment as regard to prior to instruction, during the instruction, and appropriate instructional segment. Then the next one, the level of assessment practices with regards to clarity of assessment, time of effort of task, quality of feedback, motivational belief, self-esteem to the learners, interaction and dialogue about the learning progress, and self-assessment and reflection of the learning of the learners, assessment content and processes in adapting teaching to student needs. Then, is there a significant difference? The test of difference between the assessment of teachers' respondents' level of competency when grouped according to profile, and test of difference then with regards to teacher respondents on the level of assessment practices when grouped according to profile. And what are the challenges encountered by the teacher respondents on the remote learning assessment? Then, ang ginamit kong research design is the descriptive evaluation research design. This is one of my madalas kong ginagamit because it's designed to determine the causes or consequences of processes, policy, and practices or program. This investigation approach includes the collections of data to address questions related to the status of the study. Subject, it seeks to identify essence of the situation and as it occurs a time of analysis and to examine the causes of the situation. Then, gumamit din ako ng purposive sampling. Then, there are criteria. The criteria will be the senior high school teachers and 42 senior high school teachers. Then, gumamit ako ng instrument. Then, those instruments are validated by expert. Then, ang ginamit ko, these are statistical treatment, percentage and frequency distribution for the research question 1. To determine the demographic profile of the respondents, weighted mean for research question 2 and 5 to assess the level of assessment practices and level of competence of the teacher respondents, and analysis of variance for research questions 3 and 4 to determine the test of difference between the level of competence and the level of practices of the teacher respondents when grouped according to profile. Then yan yung mga resulta. Then, punta na tayo doon sa resulta. Yan. Based doon sa findings of the study, these are conclusions. Based on the result doon, madalas doon sa mga teachers namin are TLE. Then 6 to 10 years na sa service. Then 36 to 40 years old at age na sila. Then most of the time, female. And most of them are bachelor's degree holder. As a result, concluded the teacher responded teacher's competency in remote learning in terms of assessment occurring prior to the, during, and after appropriate instruction and are high competent. Because before we conduct this action research, in the data gathering procedures, talagang during the emerging problem with regards to the assessment practices, nag-conduct na kami ng mga innovative capacity building program. Then based on the result of the teacher respondents level of practices, clarity, assessment, time of effort, lumabas talaga na sila ay ngayon ay mostly practice na. Then, punta tayo doon sa recommendation. Isa doon sa mga recommendation ko is to address the challenges the school head and testing coordinator has devised to the teacher to various follow-up methods to encourage learner to attend blended classes. Ito rin isa sa mga naging suggestions talaga namin at nakita ko talagang suggestion din talaga is yung follow-up methods to encourage the learners to attend blended classes and to submit assessment on time. More so to lessen the burden of the learners. Multiple assessment, it suggests to teachers to create integrative assessment tasks. The integrative assessment tasks to solve the challenges related to commitment of the students to attend blended classes and to submit assessment. Ibig sabihin, yung assessment nila talaga or mga performance tasks, i-merge na lang sila in one particular assessment, but the most essential learning competency nandun pa rin. Ibig sabihin, for example, yung English, Math, Science, pwede sila pagsama-samahin in one particular assessment, pero yung learning competency nandun pa rin. Integrative yung approaches ng pagsasagot ng bata na nakalagay na dun sa isang learning activity sheets. Then yung performance task, ganun din siya. para ma-improve din yung academic, para ma-improve din yung academic honesty ng mga bata. Then, ngayon po, yung bukas mo na i-share ko sa inyo is all about how we're going to integrate this assessment practices na kinunda ko na action research into curriculum innovation. Bukas ipapakita ko sa inyo on how we're going to create a curriculum innovation based on the findings of my action research practices na gumawa kami ng integrative assessment task para sa mga estudyante. One of the main assessment reform na ginawa namin. That's all lang po. Thank you po.
Thank you so much, Professor Resty Samosa, for a very fruitful discussion on action research, developing effective thinking in practice. So we will now proceed on the open forum or the question and answer. There is somebody assigned in our committee to select questions to be asked in this segment. We would like to encourage everyone to raise relevant questions on the topic presented this afternoon. We will try to cater many questions as we can. When raising your question, kindly introduce yourself, name of the institution you're affiliated with. So, do we have any question? Kindly click the raise hand button if you would like to personally ask your question to Professor Resty Samosa. Also, we would like to inform everyone that the form for attendance and evaluation can be found at the comment section of our chat box. All right, I think we have a question here. So this question is from YouTube. This is a question from Sir Wilmer Benito. Hi po, I would like to ask if the research that had been presented is a basic research as the basis or baseline for formulating another study for action research. Thank you.
Clear ko lang kung ano po, yung kaninang present ko po ba? This is referring to an action research. Action research po siya. Yung pinresent ko kanina, the first procedure kasi doon, we need to identify need assessment. Nag-need assessment muna ako. Parang, ano ba siya? Paano ba siya i-explain? Need assessment ako, what are the practices of the teachers with regards to assessment. This is the main concern of my action research. Lumabas talaga doon na kailangan ko siyang mag-conduct. At nag-interview rin ako ng mga estudyante. Nag-interview din ako ng mga estudyante. Doon, lumabas na kailangan mag-conduct ako ng assessment practices with regards to my co-teachers. Kasi kailangan mo, when you do an action research, kailangan mag-need assessment ka within your institution para may basis ka. Then yung mga bata rin mag-interview ka at based dun sa school-based management system namin, ng mga nagpapasa ng module, nakuha ko siya, na ganun yung practices. Ibig sabihin, kailangan ko mag-conduct ng action research kasi nagiging ano na siya. Ito yung before na magkaroon ng academic health break. Sabi ko, na-pursue namin talaga ng school principal namin na check na magkakaroon ng academic health break. Kasi based dun sa mga interviews na na-conduct namin, lumabas talaga yung mga bata na stress sa pagsasagot ng mga modules at iba pang learning activity sheets.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We have another question from Sir Noel Benavides. Is there an ideal number of respondents in doing an action research utilizing the reflective practice?
Saan ba po? Wait. So their ideal number of respondents in doing an action research. Wala naman po, it's purposive, most of the time, it's purposive sampling ang ginagamit ko. But pwede ka naman mag-expand ka or mas malaking number of participants ang kunin mo, pero tingnan nyo pa rin kung anong research design ang gagamitin niyo. Kasi ang research design na ginamit ko is descriptive evaluative research design. Then in quantitative approach in nature ang ginamit ko. Pero titignan nyo pa rin po kung ano yung capacity, yung lawak ng problem encounter na gusto nyong aralin. Kasi ang tinignan ko talaga is with regards to assessment practices talaga siya na madalas nakikita talaga.
So we have another question, sir, and I will read the question. I am Dr. Sheila May Labajo from Iloilo State College of Fisheries main campus. I just want to ask for clarification because based on my background in statistics, isn't it that you should be using non-parametric test because you make use of purposive sampling technique?
Okay. Thank you po. Doc, isa rin po yan sa mga tinanong sa akin ng mga panel. Bakit ako gumamit ng purposive sampling technique? While ang ginamit ko yung statistical treatment is a non-parametric test. It's not that you, hindi ako talaga totally gumamit ng non-parametric test. Isa sa tinignan ko will be the nature of the data na ginamit ko at yung aking instrument is naka-Likert scale po siya. Then yung pagkuha ko ng sample ko is based on the criteria na ang mga teachers dapat doon ay talaga totally ay nag-undergo sila ng capacity building program ko with regards to assessment. These are the criteria totally. These are the criteria in purposive sampling na ginamit ko. Then yung statistical treatment na ginamit is analysis of variance. And ano pag ginamit ko doon, gumamit ako ng chi-square test. Yan po, ma'am. Yes po.
I'm sorry. Nakamute pala ako. So we have another question, sir, from Sir Wilmer Benito from Aklan State University. I would like to ask how to spot the nature of research based on the title itself. Thank you po.
Okay. Ako kasi remember when you do a research title, kasi nga may mga nagkaroon ng paradigm talaga with regards to how to write a research title. Ako ang gumamit ako ng title, Reframing the Assessment Practices. Because we need to reframe the assessment practices based on doon sa prevailing findings of the study. Ang unang title ko dyan is Redesigning. Nung tinitignan ko kasi siya, sabi ko, mas magandang gamitin is reframing. Ibig sabihin po, nagkaroon ako ng working title talaga totally. Then, on the nature of the nature ng pag-discuss ko ng title ko or the nature of research ko with regards to my research title, because it's descriptive evaluation, we need to reframe. The nature of the descriptive evaluative research is to examine the practices, policy, and program. Ganun po siya, sir. Naline ko siya dun sa research design ko po.
Okay, sir. So another question, sir. Query po. If the research design of the study is evaluative, what was evaluated in the study?
Okay. I evaluate the level of competence of the teachers, the level of the assessment practices of the teachers. Yun po ang aking in-evaluate. These are the practices na dinefine ko po with the research design.
Okay, so I think we are down to our last question, sir. Good afternoon po. I just want to try this question. How are you going to deal with the research bias, which occurs sometimes in a research output?
Okay. Kailangan po natin gumamit ng triangulations talaga. Kapag meron tayong mga research bias talaga, we need to undergo triangulations. Yun po. Isa sa mga kailangan tingnan natin is triangulation para yung research output natin ay talagang clear po tayo with regards to subjective bias natin.
Okay, may pahabol na tanong po from Sir Noel Pinavides. Is mixed method also applicable in action research using reflective practices?
Yes po, yes po. We can do we can do a sequential explanatory or sequential explanatory design or pwede naman embedded design. Pwede po 'yun. But madalas ako ang nakikita ko kasi exploratory in nature. Sequential exploratory mixed method, pwede po 'yun.
Okay, so before we answer, do you have any concluding words to share for our participants this afternoon?
Okay po, siguro share ko po as a researcher po sa aming schools division and sa aming institution sa college. Isa po sa kailangan kong iparating sa inyo, when we do an action research, we need to become more participative. We need to redesign your knowledge when you do an action research. Kailangan, when you do an action research, kasama nyo yung school leader ninyo, kasama nyo yung mga co-teachers nyo. Kaya nga sabi ko, during the discussion, nilagay ko talaga yung risk talaga. Kasi may mga tendency talaga na hindi talaga sila mag-join. We need to explain the purpose of the action research. Then from that, mas ma-improve yung inyong school practices and also the research culture. As one of my designation in our institution as a research coordinator and testing coordinator, mas na-improve namin yung relationship with regards to how we're going to make a table specification na mas madali, na gumagamit ng mga technology embedded, at mas madaling mag-check ng mga exams. From that, mas ma-improve yung practices by joining your colleagues in conducting your action research. Bukas po mapapakita ko sa inyo yung tinatawag ko na curriculum innovations, na after ko nag-conduct ng action research, what will be the next? Meron na siya, na-present ko na siya, na-publish ko na yung paper ko. What will be the next? The next in line will be the curriculum innovation. Paano ko na i-apply yung findings of the study ng action research ko into a new practices. This is referring to curriculum innovation na i-discuss ko bukas. These are referring to theory and this is referring to research in action. Kanina, discuss ko is more on theoretical purposes and reflective practices. Then tomorrow, on the morning, mapapakita ko yung mga pwede natin gawin with regards to research in action. After you're conducting your action research, what will be the next? After publishing your paper in the international journal, ano pa next na gagawin? Yun po.
Okay, so we're looking forward for your discussion tomorrow, Professor Resty Samosa. It will be about research in action, theories of practice for innovation and social change at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. But before that, in the morning, we will have our discussion with Professor Alberto B. Dizon, becoming a teacher through action research. So I think now we will proceed on giving our certificate to Professor Resty Samosa. We would like to request our technical to please show the certificate, virtual certificate for Professor Resty Samosa. Okay, so here's the certificate. The certificate reads, Certificate of Recognition is given to Professor Resty Samosa for imparting his invaluable time, resources, and expertise as resource speaker on the topic developing reflective thinking and practice during the conduct of National Action Research Expo 2022. accorded this 28th day of January 2022 via Zoom video conferencing, live streamed in the POMI YouTube channel and PICE 21 Facebook page. Signed by Ricky A. Kibinko, Virtual Conference Director. Also signed by Emmy John Indunila Palmani, National President of PICE 21. And finally signed by Gilbert C. Magulo Jr., President of Isober Incorporated. So I think that's all for today. Before we finally close this program or this expo this afternoon, we would like to request our technical for their assistance in taking pictures for our participants.
Sir, I remove ko. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So please turn on your camera. Okay, so just keep smiling. So we have 4 panels in our room. Smile lang po tayo ng smile. Okay, so ready for sa panel 1. Ready, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, so smile lang po. So panel 2, ready, 1, 2, 3, smile. Yan, yung mga pang photogenic. Okay, so ready, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, so isa pa. So 1, 2, 3, and smile. So last panel, 1, 2, 3, and smile. Okay, so thank you guys.
Thank you and see you tomorrow. Okay na.
Okay.
yung obras na gamit nila.
Oo, ano na.
Tapos yung
Yes, sabi
Kaya sila natagalan.
dito.
Dito maganda yung brush, kaya natagalan.
Ilang gamitan na rin. Silang napamerikan. Yung tumigil na sila. Kasi may ginagawa din ako. Hello. Nice ko yung mga
Ito ba yung tapos nila?
ilang araw din nila pinagtrabaho. Ang dami nilang trabahado. Pero half day lang. Pero hindi pa rin tapos.
May
Katurahan.
hindi pa tapos.
Oo.
Ibabalik na
Tapos,
nila.
may yung bubong naman ng classroom.
Sagot niyo lahat.
May naman, yung pintura, ayun yung may nagbigay. So, pintura, hindi na kami gagastos. More on decor. Pagod ka na nga, gumagastos ka.